or on TV or in real life, medical professionals who are trying to keep someone alive, maybe administering CPR, and then when it's obvious that their attempts have failed, they call it. They set the date of death, the time of death. And now, I think, with the criminal indictment of former FBI Director James Comey, we can call the death of the legitimacy of the Donald Trump, Pam Bondi Department of Justice, we can call it September 25th, 2025. Let's talk about that, because justice matters. Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. So friends, as a former career federal prosecutor, nearly a quarter of a century at the Department of Justice alone, today is a day of mourning, because today what is probably the single most egregious vindictive prosecution, malicious prosecution ever to be brought in our nation's history has resulted in the criminal indictment of former FBI Director Jim Comey. So, friends, I haven't even scripted anything. I haven't outlined things on my dry erase whiteboard. I don't use a teleprompter. So we're just going to roll through this, and we're going to talk about not only the outrage that this is the offense and affront to the rule of law, to federal courts, to James Comey and his family, and to all of the American people, but we're going to talk about 2 points of light amidst this Trump-induced darkness. So bear with me, friends, because this one ain't going to be pretty and it ain't going to be polished. I want to start briefly with some of the new reporting, and then we're going to look at the Comey indictment. Headline: former FBI Director Comey indicted on charges of making false statements, obstruction. Former FBI Director James Comey has been charged with making a false statement and obstructing in a criminal case filed days after President Donald Trump appeared to urge his Attorney General to prosecute the former FBI Director and other perceived political enemies. Prosecutors have been evaluating whether Comey lied to lawmakers during his September 30th, 2020 testimony related to the investigation into ties between Russia and Trump's 2016 presidential campaign. The indictment was filed as the White House has taken steps to exert influence in unprecedented ways on the operations of the Justice Department, blurring the line between law and politics for an agency where independence in prosecutorial decision-making is a foundational principle. This quote from Senator Mark Warner of Virginia, quote, "Trump has made clear that he intends to turn our justice system into a weapon for punishing and silencing his critics," said Senator Mark Warner, the top Democrat on the Senate Intelligence Committee. Warner said after the forced ouster of the U.S. attorney in his state, the Trump administration installed a loyalist to bring the charges that others had rejected. Quote, "This kind of interference is a dangerous abuse of power," Warner said. "Our system depends on prosecutors making decisions based on evidence and the law, not on the personal grudges of a politician determined to settle scores." And now, friends, let's go right to the Comey indictment, and then let's talk about what's really going on here and why this will fail. Why Donald Trump and Pam Bondi and this newly installed flunky, U.S. Attorney Lindsay Halligan, came in just a couple of days ago and indicted a case that Donald Trump's former U.S. attorney in that office would not indict, and that prosecutors who were familiar with the case, who worked the case in that office, wrote a memo to the U.S. attorney saying, we ain't got it. We don't have the evidence. This case shouldn't be indicted. This case shouldn't be prosecuted. Donald Trump's flunky didn't care. She presented it to a grand jury anyway, or had somebody present it. And here are the two charges they indicted James Comey on. In the case of the United States of America versus James B. Comey, Jr., defendant, there's one count of making false statements to Congress, and it reads, on or about September 30, 2020, in the Eastern District of Virginia, the defendant, James Comey, did willfully and knowingly make a materially false, fictitious, and fraudulent statement in a matter within the jurisdiction of the legislative branch of the government of the United States by falsely stating to a U.S. senator during a Senate Judiciary Committee hearing that he, James Comey, had not authorized someone else at the FBI to be an anonymous source in news reports regarding an FBI investigation concerning person one. That statement was false because, as James Comey then and there knew, he in fact had authorized person three to serve as an anonymous source in news reports regarding an FBI investigation concerning person one. And the second count is obstruction of a congressional proceeding. On or about September 30, 2020, in the Eastern District of Virginia, the defendant, James Comey, did corruptly endeavor to influence, obstruct, and impede the due and proper exercise of the power of inquiry under which an investigation was being had before the Senate Judiciary Committee by making false and misleading statements before that committee. Okay, friends, let's roll through this. First of all, this is a vindictive prosecution. Vindictive prosecution is a defense, and believe me, James Comey's legal team will file a motion to dismiss this case with prejudice, meaning it can never be reindicted, rebrought against Comey. They will file a motion to dismiss based on vindictive prosecution and probably selective prosecution, all kind of under the heading of malicious prosecution, which is what this is. And I believe this will be the most robust, the most compelling vindictive prosecution motion ever filed in the courts of the United States. Not hyperbole. Why do I say this is a vindictive prosecution? Donald Trump has been threatening to misuse the Department of Justice's powers to go after his political enemies forever, right? Dating back 10 years to lock her up, right? Hillary Clinton is the OG of Donald Trump's wrath and promises to prosecute, which he's never done to Hillary Clinton. But here is just a little bit of the evidence that will be used by Comey's lawyers to prove this is a vindictive prosecution. Just a few days ago, Donald Trump posted something on his social media platform announcing that he wants a vindictive prosecution. He didn't use those words, but that is sure what he communicated. And in one post, there are 3 examples of why Donald Trump was urging his Department of Justice, Pam Bondi, to bring a vindictive prosecution. First, he says, Pam, directing this to his consigliere, his lawyer, Pam Bondi, I have reviewed over 30 statements and posts saying that essentially same old story as last time, all talk, no action, nothing is being done. What about Comey and Schiff and Letitia? They're all guilty as hell, but nothing's being done about it. This is Donald Trump quoting posts that he's read where people are complaining that he's all talk, no action, and nobody's being prosecuted. You know what, friends? That's not a reason to prosecute somebody. That's not a reason to criminally indict somebody because you, Donald, are reading social media posts criticizing you for not doing anything. No. You indict somebody, you prosecute somebody based on the facts and the law, not based on criticism that you are getting on social media. There's piece of evidence number 1 proving vindictive prosecution. Piece of evidence number 2. We can't delay any longer. It's killing our reputation and our credibility, friends. That's more evidence of vindictive prosecution. That's the second piece of evidence in this social media post. You don't prosecute somebody because it's killing your reputation and your credibility. That's not a basis to criminally indict or to prosecute somebody. You indict and prosecute somebody based on the facts and the law, not on the reality that your credibility and reputation is being killed. But he helpfully puts a third piece of evidence in there that will help James Comey prove vindictive prosecution. He says, well, they impeached me twice and indicted me 5 times over nothing. Well, guess what, Donald? It's not a basis to bring criminal charges against somebody else because you were criminally indicted for the crimes that you inarguably committed. We saw the evidence, classified documents, January 6th. That is evidence of a vindictive prosecution. Donald Trump saying, hey, they impeached and prosecuted me, so I want you to prosecute my enemies. As I say, friends, this will be the most robust and compelling vindictive prosecution motion to dismiss ever brought in the courts of the United States. Can we do a couple of points of light? Because goodness knows we need some points of light, and there are 2. First of all, this is a Jimmy Kimmel-esque miscalculation. What do I mean by that? Donald Trump and his flunky FCC commissioner said what? Hey, we could do this the easy way or do it the hard way, inferentially threatening that ABC had best kick Jimmy Kimmel off the airwaves because that's what Donald Trump wants. You know, Donald Trump has railed against Jimmy Kimmel for how long now? Because he is so thin-skinned that he doesn't like comedians making jokes about him. The man is a joke all day, every day. So what happened in the wake of Donald Trump and his FCC commissioner successfully convincing ABC or Disney to kick Jimmy Kimmel off the air? The people rose up. A sleeping giant was awakened, and it didn't take long before Disney and ABC reversed course and put Jimmy Kimmel back on air. And what happened? Jimmy Kimmel's popularity exploded. Biggest numbers he's ever done regarding viewership for Jimmy Kimmel Live, right? So what does that show? It was a colossal miscalculation by Donald Trump because all he did is expose himself as the weak POS that he is. Because, yeah, he got Kimmel kicked off for a week, but now Kimmel is back and bigger and badder and stronger than ever and just as funny. So, yeah, that was a miscalculation by Trump. And the fact that Disney put him back on and ABC put him back on, that exposes just how weak Donald Trump is. He couldn't even successfully keep a comedian off air for more than a week. Point of light number 2. And it also has to do with exposing Donald Trump's weakness, not his strength. If this case actually goes to trial, a jury of Jim Comey's peers will find him not guilty in, I would say, a New York minute, but that's how the jury in New York found Donald Trump guilty of 34 felony crimes in violation of state law in a New York minute. I guess this will be in a Virginia minute because this will be in the courtroom in Alexandria, Virginia, in the Eastern District U.S. Attorney's Office, right across the river from D.C. I know that office well. I worked collaboratively with prosecutors there over the years when we had defendants or investigations in common. And when this case is either thrown out, dismissed on a vindictive prosecution motion, or if it goes to trial, a jury declares Jim Comey not guilty, that will expose Donald Trump's weakness. Because he can threaten to prosecute people all day long, but he can't do it successfully because he doesn't have the evidence. And goodness knows he's not going to have the lawyers who are unethical enough to go in and try to prosecute Jim Comey. I don't know where they're going to find these federal prosecutors at the Eastern District of Virginia U.S. Attorney's Office, because mind you, friends, mind you, Donald Trump's previous U.S. attorney in that office, Eric Siebert, who knew what the hell he was doing, has been a federal prosecutor in that office since 2010, was highly regarded by the employees there. He wouldn't bring this case because there wasn't enough evidence to bring the case. And then a group of federal prosecutors in that office authored a memo and gave it to the U.S. attorney. Lindsay Halligan had it available to her saying, no, we will not try to indict this case because we don't even have probable cause to seek an indictment. Probable cause is down here. Proof beyond a reasonable doubt at trial is up here. It is the highest evidentiary burden known to the law. And the prosecutors didn't believe they had probable cause, never mind proof beyond a reasonable doubt. So this case will go down in flames. And that will expose Donald Trump as the paper tiger or the paper pussycat that he is, and he will get weaker, not stronger. Those are points of light. It's hard to see them amidst the Trump-induced darkness, friends. But the other thing this is going to do, I'm going to throw a bonus third point of light into the mix tonight. It will galvanize the legal community in ways that we have not yet been galvanized. Yes, we've been banding together. We've been standing up. We've been speaking out. We've been staying strong, right? Calling out the abject abuse of the rule of law and the Constitution, the corruption of Pam Bondi's leadership of the Department of Justice. This will galvanize us in new, energizing ways. I promise. I promise. Because when I stop recording this video, I'm going to work on that right now. Because justice matters. Particularly at the Department of Justice. Justice matters. In the United States of America, justice matters. If it didn't matter, we wouldn't be so pissed off at the absence of justice, at the abuse of justice at the hands of Pam Bondi and Donald Trump, and the Lindsay Halligans of this now dark episode in our nation's history. Yes, justice matters. Friends, thank you for joining me for this rant. Yeah, I'm pretty animated right now. I'm pretty angry right now. But we're going to fight through this. We're going to fight through this. Friends, as always, please stay safe. Please stay tuned. And I look forward to talking with you all again tomorrow.